way over here in the corner. Hiya.
Movement sounding like you two. Would you encourage that, or would you prefer to get their own individual sound?
I think that's a very good question. Some people say that, you know, some people have come to me and they said, hey, Bono, I've got a band. That sounds just like you too. Well, then you've got the point, you know, you've really got the wrong end of the stick, because, you know, one thing always what you two stood for was trying to find our own way. And we would never want anyone to try and find our way. They should find their own way. And, you know, everyone walks and talks differently. Everyone has their own original way about them. If they just apply that to their music will be as original. And that's very important, not to imitate you two because you two are doing well. Now, the record companies in America and England will always be looking for you two part 2. And then next week it'll be somebody else. Next week, somebody else. Best thing is just to find out what's going on in your own band.
And a lot of hands going up at the very, very back. Sorry, yeah. Hiya.
Hiya. Do you resent people saying that, you know, I'm really into you too because their message and I can relate to that? Because you said on MTSA with Vincent Hanley that you had a message but you weren't the postman. Like, you know.
That was very deep. Well, I don't know. There are many different, different sides to the group U2. And I used to look down on, you know, people who are just into U2 because, you know, the Edge is a great guitar player. We make a lot of noise, and I'd like them to be into U2 because of, you know, what U2 stand for. But now I think whatever you see in U2 that works for you, that's okay. I think that's actually the strength of the group, is that there are different sides.
Yeah, one journalist put it very well, said U2's music is for the head, the heart, and for the feet.
Probably
yeah.
me, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's very deep.
Listen, Larry, I want to go back. This is a slightly sad note, but we were talking about the beginnings early on. And I know Philip Lynott was a friend, an advisor, and an encouraging person on the sidelines for the band early on. Presumably you were quite devastated when you heard the news of his death.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't know him like as a personal friend. We didn't see him all the time, but just the fact that he was there, and at the very beginning when we did need a hand, like he just offered his advice. He was always around. He never bitched about any other Irish band, which there's an awful lot of bitching goes on now between bands, which is pretty awful. And you know, it was pretty devastating when he did die, because he's, you know.
I tell you, that's one thing he's left, a legacy. It's an example that we picked up on, and I hope then that people will pick up on maybe the example that we could leave, because I think the single biggest obstacle to Irish, you know, to Dublin groups in particular, the single biggest obstacle is their own ability to stab each other in the back. You just walk through, it's only a very small city, but they say no pond is too small for a feud between frogs. You want to see them feuding around Grafton Street. You can't find two bands that'll say a good word about each other. Makes me sick. And it's just, you know, instant karma is going to get you. They're just hanging themselves. They're putting a rope around their own neck. If you go to Belfast, you'll see groups of different styles, different musical styles, but you won't see them fighting amongst each other the way you'll see them down here. Phil Lynott, what he stood for me, and you know, Adam was the first person that came in contact with him. He rang him. I mean, even Adam would admit, ringing somebody at 8 o'clock in the morning, okay, if they're in the band business, is not a good idea, but he rang him at 8 o'clock in the morning to ask him some advice. Now, I think even Adam would probably tell somebody, listen, ring me in a few hours, and Phil was there, oh yeah, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, but, and he offered advice. And you never heard him bitching about other bands. I never heard him bitching about other bands.
Right.
And that is a legacy that he left to me. And I think that if others were aware about that, we could help, you know, people in bands could look after each other in bands, even to the extent of lending each other gear. You might think the group's music is not what you're into, but a bit of cooperation, I think, would be a good thing to see.
Larry, there is this Phil Lynott Memorial anti-drug concert being organised in London. You were expressing some grievances about that, or some worries about it?
Yeah, I just felt that it was a little bit in bad taste, the fact that, you know, I sort of put myself in the situation of being his family. Suddenly see this thing in memory of Phil Lynott anti-heroin campaign, like less than 2 weeks after the guys passed away. I just thought it was in bad taste, and I totally disagree with that. You know, with using his name. Obviously, I like the idea of an anti-heroin campaign, but using Phil Lynott's name in it, like a week after his death, was really offensive to me, and I know for a fact it was offensive to his family.
Despite presumably the fact that the people organising it.
I'm sure they got the best will in the world, yeah. But I mean, it was like something that they obviously did off the top of their heads and didn't think that seriously about, you know. And I wish they had.
Right. Moving on to major gigs you've played, Live Aid. Was that a spectacularly memorable day for you? Because a lot of people in Ireland watch you playing in London that day.
Linda McCartney kissed me there.
Did she?
Yeah. Actually, that was the highlight for me. Was standing beside Paul McCartney. I shared a microphone with Paul McCartney. I just felt his genius just jumping, climbing up my arm and stuff. And I went back to the others and I said, look, I think I've got some of Paul McCartney's genius just there. And they said, you know, that was a cool thing. But I really liked the day. I really liked seeing the way bands behaved with each other.
Because you were talking about young bands sharing, helping each other out. Larry, that was a day when some of the real established superstars seemed to do it.
It really was incredible. Bands were like told they got 15 minutes on stage and they were finished in 15 minutes. I've never ever seen a band, including ourselves, keep to a time, you know. And there were all these sort of stars sitting out, you know, talking to each other. It was great. It was from a whole lot of points of view, but that one really stood out with me. The fact that, you know, everyone was sort of just goofing around, no hassle. You know, there's no egos.
These little fellas going into the dressing rooms and saying, David Bowie, get out of your dressing room. And he was going, oh, yes, yeah, right away. You know, picking up his things and off he was going, you know. Yeah. I thought his performance, by the way, was one of the best performances. Heroes, I thought was outstanding.
Was there